Hello, hello, everybody. Hope you're well. Today is a very interesting day. My name is African Queen Mo, coming to you from the beautiful city of Nairobi. Hope you're well. Today is a very interesting day. It's the 19th of January, a landmark day. It's actually, did they say it's Martin Luther King's day today in the US? Well, definitely it is the Trump inauguration day. Did you guys watch Trump's inauguration? Oh my goodness, it was quite interesting. It really looked like the Billionaires Club over there. It really did. And one of the things that, I was watching it with my mom, and my mom, I must admit, she has a little bit of, mental, like she's forgetting things. She's old, huh? But she hasn't forgotten one thing that looked like a very non-diverse group of people at the inauguration. So, Trump, what is going on? You say for the first time in 48 years, the Hispanic vote has been there. And the first time, I think in 24 years or something, it's the black vote is dominant. So why is it that we didn't see enough of the blacks and Hispanics in your inauguration, Mr. Donald Trump? H.E. Excellency Donald Trump, we expected to see a little bit more representation. We know that the Somali community in Minnesota was very vocal and gave you all the votes. Why did we not see their faces at the inauguration? The inauguration just looked like a sea of whites. For those of us who were here in Africa, it's a bit disappointing to see so little diversity in the inauguration. And that's one of the things you can learn from Donald Trump's reelection. I am a supporter of Donald Trump, a big one. I am a supporter of Donald Trump. I'll say that openly and honestly. But I was disappointed. Being here in Nairobi, watching from Nairobi, I was expecting to see a little bit more diversity. And unfortunately, what I saw was, I know the same thing, the White Boys Club. And it's unfortunate. I really hope that changes. I really hope that changes. Even though I am aware that the vice president of Trump has a wife who is of Asian descent. That's nice. And the fact that he's also young, that's good. But it's not nice to see, having lived in the US so many years ago and gone to school in the US, and knowing that the US is a very diverse country, yeah, that has representation from people of all colors and races all over the world. It's very disappointing to see at the inauguration a sea of just one color, white. That is not fair, guys. That is not right. It's a very bad thing to see. It's not good. It's not good. It doesn't show democracy, and it doesn't show any sort of what do we say, integration. We don't see the integration, and it's quite disappointing. That was a big disappointment for me, but I am happy that at least we have Donald Trump in power, and I'm really hoping against all hope that things are going to change for the better. Donald Trump promised us that we are now going to see a new golden age in America. Okay. And I know he talked about drill, baby, drill. He's looking forward to exploiting the natural resources of the U.S. to rebuild the U.S. economy. He is not a fan of the Green Revolution, so he wants to go for fossil fuels and rebuild the U.S. using fossil fuels. I don't know to what extent that is going to be viable if you compare the U.S., for example, with China. If you see China is all full of electric trains that are even hanging upside down. They're being ridden upside down, upside down railways, I call them. There's some on the top and there's some on the bottom. I mean, it's just quite amazing. And I'm sure they're electric. So I'm not so sure, how relevant Donald Trump's new technology is going to be for the new age, because really we are competing against China here. We are. So, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here, guys. And we really appreciate you being here. Very soon, I will be joined by my colleague. Her name is Susan, and she's a lawyer from Kenya. And she'll be joining me soon. In fact, I should let her know that I'm on. But in the meantime, let's go over what lessons have we learned from the Donald Trump re-election. What I have learned from Donald Trump's re-election is never say never. Never give up. The gentleman is 78 years old. He was born in 1946, I believe in June. And I was like, what? 1946? And we complain over here when we get to 50 years old, you think that, oh my God, I'm so old, I need to retire and just, forget about my work. Or maybe when I get to 65, I'm going to retire and travel the world and wait for the day I die. Well, no. Donald Trump at 78 has gone back and has been re-elected president twice. This is the second time around. And the man is energetic, he's enthusiastic, very enthusiastic, you know. He has a huge personality. And you really have to admire it because his sense of concentration and focus is really on another level. You know, whether you like him or whether you hate him, you can take those positive things from Donald Trump as a personal learning thing. Again, he has amazing ideas and he knows how to like sway emotion to get the crowd to be emotional around him. His nonverbal communication today was amazing. Did you see the look that he was giving? Like, he was like, I ain't joking here. I looked at all that nonverbal communication and his gestures. He has all these gestures in his little round mouth. He's really quite an amazing guy. And then, of course, he has boundless confidence the way he sits over there. He's 78 and he's like, you know what? I don't care about you Gen Zs and the rest of you who are on TikTok. Hey, I am the president here and I did it. He looks so bold. And he talked about the fact that he narrowly missed death. He was almost assassinated, but he believes that God saved him. He believes God saved him to to make America great again. And then he also said, make Argentina great again. And I would say, make Africa great again. Make Asia great again. MAGA, MAGA, that's what it stands for. Donald Trump is an amazing storyteller. That man can tell stories. I mean, that's one of the things that I really admire about him, that he's a great storyteller. He knows how to engage a captive audience. Whether or not he's telling the truth or not is not the issue. The issue is that he can tell stories and, capture your interest. And he always talks about the hero, kind of like he's in a movie. It's like he's on a movie set. He's always talking about heroes and villains and the good ending. I've been reading about these things. He sells dreams. That's what I can say. He sells a dream that he's make America great again. The question is, do you remember what it looked like when America was great? I remember when America was great because I was in the US in the 80s and the 90s. And America was a great country in those days. It was a wonderful place. Everybody wanted to go there. But now, since TikTok days and the new red book days, current ones, it looks like the focus is shifting to China, guys. China is almost stealing America's thunder. And this is serious, very serious, because we have to realize the one thing that China is doing very correctly is that they're enhancing diversification, not just of their products and what they manufacture and what they sell abroad, but even in terms of the audience, their captive audience. Here in Kenya, we have something called the China centers. And they're huge, they're big malls, and they are full of, yes, they're run by the Chinese, but they're full of Kenyan workers. Yeah. And you feel like you're in China. You can get everything in there at like half the price as what you get in other shops. So they're very big on diversification. I remember when I traveled to Lesotho. There was a time I was working in Lesotho, and Lesotho is in southern Africa. It's a little country in the middle of in the bottom of southern Africa, and they speak Sotho. They speak Sotho, the language, the Basotho people, and there in this remote place were these Chinese who have set up shops and they're learning the local language. One of the things with Chinese entrepreneurship is that they really pick up on the need for learning local languages, integration, and kind of like being able to communicate and get along with their host countries. And of course, there are some silly ones over there who come and they're not really sure what they're doing. And in the end, they say that they're not serving they're not serving Kenyans, they're not serving Nigerians, they don't serve Black people. And eventually they find themselves, on planes back to their countries. But the vast majority of the Chinese have done an excellent job of integrating themselves. And the thing is, this is what you don't see in America. In America, you see the super rich all by themselves. And at the inauguration, I believe that that's going to be one thing that really sticks out like a sore thumb. And the whole world is going to see that. The whole world is going to see that and it's going to react. I guarantee you the whole world will react. And so this is something that they need to do damage control about really fast. Again, I believe that we can also learn from Donald Trump in his ways of focusing and engineering a conversation in one direction. Yeah. He's always talking about, he kind of like tends to focus on the weaknesses of his enemy or the weaknesses of his competition. Yeah. And, he talked about the breakdown of the social services, the breakdown of education, the breakdown of the family, the breakdown of transportation, infrastructure, so many things that he promises to improve, going forward. Oh, Susan is joining us. Let me bring Susan on board first of all. Yeah. Hi, Susan. Karibu sana. Sorry, I think I've
Hello, how are
the
you?
notification. Yeah,
Sorry?
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
yeah,
just saying sorry I didn't give you the notification. I just assumed that I did. I'm sorry about that. Yeah. But
yeah,
anyway, we're talking about like what can we learn from Donald Trump's reelection? And what I'm saying is that Donald Trump seems to batter his enemies. He has his facts on his fingertips. He does his research, he reads, he consults widely with people of different ages, Elon Musk types, yeah, people of different ages and people in different sectors, and people who are influential. He's open minded. You see, he has reinstated TikTok, which was banned literally for 12 hours, and Americans were silent on the platform for 12 hours, and he reinstated TikTok immediately. And he became a hero to young people. So now he has the ear of the young people. This is a strategy. He's very strategic. That's one of the things
yeah,
that I really do like about Donald Trump. That he seems like a nice grandfather. He looks like a nice wuka. Eh? Gogo, I think is what you call Shosho, but he looks like a nice grandpa. Yeah. And somebody who's approachable, somebody who listens, somebody who allows young people just to be, somebody who doesn't want to be overbearing, somebody who understands the competition. This is the business mind that is in Trump. He understands the competition. Yeah. And so he doesn't want to like sideline anybody. He wants to be more inclusive. And then I also saw that Elon Musk said, okay, so now that we are accommodating TikTok again, let's just talk about the ban of Twitter in China. Why has China banned Twitter? So this is going to be a war. Yeah. And I'm looking forward to see how it ends. But this is really interesting, focusing on the weaknesses of the competition for your own, for your own benefit, downplaying your own weaknesses. Okay. And shifting the victim. So he downplays his own weaknesses. What are some of the weaknesses that we see of Trump? Number one, the very first weakness we can see is perhaps maybe his physical strength, and maybe the fact that he might be a little bit irrelevant having been born in 1946. Eh? He's not a young man. So maybe he can you overlook those weaknesses of his because he is so relevant. What he looks like and what comes out of his mouth are two different things. And that's really nice because then you can see that um he doesn't focus on his weaknesses. He focuses on what he brings to the table, literally. And that's really nice. And again, the other thing he does is that there's a lot of nonverbal communication in terms of his actions, the way he treats his wife in public, the way he treats his children in public. He looks like a family man. He's a loving husband. We don't know what goes on behind the scene. But everybody can kind of like associate with him. The youth can associate, the ladies can associate, pretty ladies can associate. His wife is Melania, and she's from a different country. So people who are refugees in America or people who are asylum seekers can identify with Trump. So that's another good thing. And then another thing I feel like, his hard work. Donald Trump is a very hardworking man. I believe he attended over 900 rallies. Some of them were online and some of them were in person. Vast majority of them were in person. In person. During his campaign, he attended almost 1,000 rallies. He attended so many at his age. And we saw that in Kenya, by the way. Raila Odinga, who was a candidate in our elections in 2022, he also attended so many rallies, by the way, and he was very strong. It looks to me like the more that you push your body, the more strong that it gets, the stronger that it gets. So I think that's the thing. That was a trick. I think the more you push yourself, the stronger that you get. So I think the idea of sitting behind being a couch potato is not a great idea. So he showed us hard work and the results of hard work, believing in himself. He really does believe in himself. I'm sure he gives himself a lot of positive reaffirming. Yeah, he reaffirms himself a lot. Again, the other thing, like I was talking about, is that he's evolving with the times and with the electorate, with his audience. Whereas before, he had kind of ignored, well, in what he said, his speech, he was ignoring people of color to some extent. He was ignoring the Black Americans, the Hispanics, and people like that. But this particular time, I heard in the inauguration that he gave thanks to these two groups of people, and he said that he's looking forward to have a colorblind society. That's really a nice thing. That's a really positive thing. He wants a colorblind society where people get promoted based on merit and not by the color of their skin. But unfortunately, there are many people who merited to come to the inauguration and they were not there. The color of their skin was not evident in that inauguration. It just looked like a sea of creamy white. And I know for sure in America, we have enough people who are of diverse races, and they should have, even for perception, for the world to perceive America, to see for the world to see his inauguration as inclusive. He missed that one. He missed that, and I hope he's gonna, his handlers are gonna, and people who are dealing with his PR are gonna, correct that in future. So that's one of the weaknesses that I discovered, that he was a little bit out of touch, or maybe he wasn't even part of the development, or should I say the preparation of that ceremony. Yeah. Again, the thing is that how to deal with loss. He lost the last election, okay? And I think one of the things that you learn is that even if you lose, it doesn't, you try and you try again, like what Susan was talking about the last time that we had a meeting here. Susan was telling us yesterday, when you lose, just try and try and try again, working together with other people. And then the final thing that I feel is that there's a saying that a setback is a setup for a comeback, right? A setback is a setup for a comeback. So for me, I'm really impressed with Donald Trump as a person, as an individual, in terms of his resolve and the fact that he is so strong, and he's able to face a lot of challenges, questioning himself. You remember, he was also facing court cases, this guy. Yeah. He's even facing them right now, but his resilience is on another level. I don't know, maybe is he a narcissist, do you think that he has inflated beliefs of himself, about himself? Maybe that might have helped him this time, I don't know. Or is that the word bipolar? I think it's the bipolar people who think, very highly of themselves. They have these grandiose ideas about themselves. But I mean, he's not the only one who feels that way. I'm going to show you something that was quite interesting in terms of that grandiose ideas about yourself. Well, in the end, you have to give yourself a pat on the back if nobody else will. Yeah. Okay. So, Susan, what did you think you learned from Donald Trump's inauguration or re-election?
Yeah, I listened to it too. It was about a 30-minute talk. He seemed to be speaking, you know, um, without reading. He seemed to be just speaking, developing the thought as he was speaking. But I'm not sure whether he had a teleprompter, but he seemed to just be speaking naturally. I think that was my observation. And I think it was a very clever speech, full of superlatives and determination. There was no doubt. It was unequivocal. There was no doubt about what he meant. He didn't mince his words at all. He's not the euphemistic type. He speaks boldly. And I thought some of the things that he said really would have shown his recognition of like you mentioned, that he acknowledged the Black and Hispanic vote. He also acknowledged the vote of the people in the military. He also acknowledged the vote of the auto workers. So he was very clear about, he had done some homework to find out, who voted for him, and he addressed their issues. So they're issues that he said they're going to happen. And when he said that he's inaugurated on the Martin Luther King Day, which he was talking about, I have a dream, and he said that he was going to make this dream come true. And essentially he prioritized pride in being an American, a prosperous nation, and a free nation. Some other things that I noticed that he was very clear about was that he was talking about sovereignty being reclaimed and safety being restored. He also talked about one of the problems or some of the challenges of the previous presidency was there was a crisis of trust. The pillars of society lay broken. Those were the words he used. There was a failure to protect law-abiding citizens, and he said there was a focus on defending foreign borders whilst refusing to defend its own borders. So we can see he had, although he didn't say this is my foreign policy, you can pick it out from some of the statements he was making. So one of them is defending foreign borders whilst refusing to defend its own borders, which clearly shows that his intention was just is more to defend the borders of America. And in fact, he talked about his legacy is being a peacemaker and a unifier, and that's one of the legacies he wants to leave behind. So he said, and that will the military strength that they have as the Americans that he is intending to build will be demonstrated by the winning of wars, the stopping of wars, and the not engaging in war. So he, again, we can see the concerns about the Ukraine-Russia war that were there. Were there. How is he going to respond to that? Because we know America has a lot of interest in security. Even in Kenya, our concern again is the counterterrorism that Kenya is involved in with the US and other nations because of the East African region and other parts of Africa are really susceptible to terrorism coming down from Somalia, Somaliland, and all that because of the type of strife they have in that area. So he also talked about what he was going to build, and there are a number of institutions he established which will reflect on what his focus was. He said that he said he was going to build a he declared a national emergency over the southern border, that is with Mexico, and he was going to halt illegal entry into the country and return millions of illegal, he used quite strong words, he called them criminals, and there was going to be the end of the catch and release policy that was there perhaps in the previous presidency, and he was going to use the military to quell this sort of what he described as disastrous invasion of the US. His concern was with the foreign cartels that are able to operate across the borders into America. And he was going to invoke a 1978 act to eliminate foreign gangs on US soil. That was one of the things he said. And I noticed even reading further from the news that actually some migrants who came in during the Biden parole policy, Biden presidency parole policy, are self-deporting back to Mexico. They're taking themselves back. They are preempting being deported, and they'd rather do it themselves, so they are self-deporting. The other thing that he said, he had also declared a national energy emergency, and they will, in his words, drill, baby, drill. In other words, they're going to start selling American oil and natural gases. Is going to be one of the things that they're going to sell to the world. So they're going to enter into that market that is currently dominated perhaps by the Arabic countries right now. also revive the manufacturing sector, and he was going to revoke something he called the Green New Deal. I think this was something that came up during the Biden administration. The other thing he said talked about was taxes. He said that the previous regime was collecting taxes from the nationals to to um, to do things outside America. But now what he's going to do is they're going to collect tariffs, and that those tariffs that they collect will benefit the Americans in their country. Um, so he's going to establish what he called the External Revenue Service to collect all tariffs for foreign services. His idea also was to improve the government efficiency and also freedom of speech, to lift the current censorship on freedom of speech, um, you know, and also to stop or to cull the immense power of the state, the abuse of the immense power of the state, which was weaponized during the previous regime to stifle liberties. And I think when he's talking about the freedom of speech, was many people found themselves in problems and being no platform for airing views about things that they found to be very extreme, like for instance, issues of gender, the number of genders in the in you know the recognized genders, and the transgender issue and all that. When people spoke up about some of these things, they would end up in problems or in conflict with the law. I think in yesterday's discussion, I talked about a teacher who actually sued the school because she said that the ideals that the school were telling her to promote were against her Christian ideals, so she refused to promote them. And she was dismissed, but she was successfully sued the school and got quite a large settlement. The other thing he talked about was the policy, the gender policy. He said there are only two genders, male and female. So so he's reversed all those multiple genders that were being recognized in the previous regime, where there was complete freedom, and he sort of said, look, they're just male and female genders. So that is likely to be quite what you call because I think this was one of the issues that really pushed people across people across the divide,
Yeah.
the extremism to vote for Trump, and he said he's going to reverse all that. And so that's the
Susan,
other
did you
thing that
notice, just to interrupt a little bit, I noticed something when he said that. Did you
yeah,
see the faces in the crowd? Yeah.
I didn't. I
People
was
looked
listening. I was
worried. Oh, you were
just
listening. Ah, okay. I was looking
uh,
at the faces. I was looking at the reactions of the people
yeah,
who were in that hall, especially,
yes,
just women, young women especially. I was looking at
yes.
them looking like shocked, shocked, worried. I kind of, did anybody see that? Did any of you guys notice like nonverbal communication from those people who attended the inauguration when Donald Trump talked about these rights, or should I say freedoms, these kinds of freedoms,
Yeah,
especially those ones attached to the gender issue,
yeah,
especially that particular one. If you
yeah.
go back and you watch it again, just look at the faces of people in that room. And I did see somewhere where people were saying that they're going to run away from America and go to Canada and go to other countries where they can be free, yeah, to practice, to practice what they want, But yeah, they think that that's a bit authoritarian, and yeah, and some Americans have actually threatened to leave the country, leave, but where are they going to go? That's the question. Some of them are, by the way, some of them have even planned to go. They're going to the UK, yeah, and other countries like that. Yeah, some people are planning to leave because of those laws. Because that means things like transgender, things like, there's so many. There are like, I don't know how many different sexualities that are being taught. Should I say different
They keep
genders that are being taught
increasing.
to our children? I
They
remember
keep
going
increasing.
through. Hmm?
They keep
Mhm.
increasing. it's it's
Oh yeah,
it's a very
they're now over
dynamic.
100.
It's
Yes.
very dynamic. They keep
Uh-huh.
increasing.
Hmm.
You can't keep track of them.
Yeah.
At one point there were 50
Hmm.
plus, and they keep
Hmm.
increasing.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's he said enough of that. There are only two
Yeah.
genders, and
Hmm.
really that also impacts very highly on the education system, which has
Hmm.
been supporting transgenderism to some degree, because and the parents have been left out of the whole process. In fact, there's this big debate that you are allowing a child to choose which gender they can be when they cannot even drive or drink alcohol at that age. So they're being allowed to make decisions which are so life transforming and on
Yes.
issues.
Yeah.
And when they're younger, then the laws of the various states do not allow them to drink or to drive. And so
Hmm.
it just and something, you know in my view, is absurd. It's an absurdity. you know it's an absurdity because
It
they're not
sure
adults.
is.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I think he
Yeah.
put
Yeah.
a stop to that. And even I think he's also supporting family values, because some of these ideals have been these transformation, or these ideas, these
Hmm.
gender issued ideas, have been hijacked from parents. So the parents are excluded from that decision, and a decision, the teachers seem to have more authority than the parents.
Hmm.
And that was causing a lot of tension, in the family. So he said there are only two genders. He also did something interesting with the apparently during the when the COVID vaccine was being given, some military personnel refused to take the jab, whatever reason, and they were rejected. They were sent home, and
Hmm.
or rather dismissed. And so he has
Hmm.
reinstated all those, with back
Yeah.
pay
I
from
hope
the
he
time
does
they were
that for the
dismissed
doctors and the nurses who also lost their jobs. There's so many
because
people in
of
the medical
yeah
field. And what would that be?
yeah
I mean, that might also then roll on to other countries. That might happen also in the UK and other countries, because that might actually introduce legal lawsuits against governments if the UK does
yeah
this. Because you see, UK is big brother. Whatever it
yeah
does, when America catches a cold, when America sneezes, the whole world catches a cold or catches the COVID. That's basically it.
yeah
Yeah. So
yeah
it's very possible that in other countries, anybody who may have lost their job would actually be able to sue, yeah, and get back pay for it, and also get their jobs reinstated, which would be really great. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was a big issue. People had very strong views about whether or not to take the vaccine.
Yeah.
And then
He has a lot of goals and objectives, and I hope that he actually, because he said that he was actually going to establish a department of efficiency. And I know that he has
yeah,
somebody in charge of that department. I don't know who it
yeah,
is, but he has somebody. So what that means is that it's kind of like an oversight body, I would expect it would be, that would make sure that the government services are being carried out efficiently and effectively, and to kind of like keep people accountable, keep him accountable to his promises, which is a really good thing. That's something that we can learn, that we should actually introduce these kinds of governments of efficiencies. But I'd like to also share something, Susan. Once you're done, just let me know when I can have a space to start showing some few videos.
okay. I just wanted to say some of the things that he also said
Mhm.
was part of his, like, uh, I don't know what to put whether this is foreign policy or military policy, was to change the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, and
Yeah, that's
also
another one that caused big stares in the room.
and the
People are like,
Panama
what?
Canal.
Are we actually
Yeah,
seriously going to be taking over other countries? I saw on TikTok people saying, oh, somebody from Greenland saying, Donald Trump wants to buy my country. He wants to buy my country.
yeah. There
Actually,
was
can you
something
imagine
like
if
that.
if Donald Trump decides to focus on Kenya, or focus in your country, Zimbabwe, Namibia, or wherever you come from, Uganda, and
Yeah,
say,
yeah,
from now on, Kenya is going to be called Gulf of America. Yeah, Kenya, America. This and like what? You're buying my country? How? But what gives him the right to do that? The same thing with Canada. He actually wants to get Canada too. He wants
Yeah,
Canada to be
it's
part of America.
the 51st
Of
state.
the,
Yeah, I saw that.
uh-huh,
I saw that also.
uh-huh.
Was talking about,
So I
yeah,
think,
there's
yeah,
stories
they,
about, mhm.
is
And
it, are they
Trudeau,
trying to create a one world government? Are they trying to make the Bible prophecies come true with one leader? Are they trying to do
and
that?
I think Trudeau got into problems with the Canadians because he was pandering too much to the whims of America. So one of the
Hmm.
things that made President Trudeau unpopular, I think, was that the way he was pandering to the whims of America. So definitely there was that Gulf of America. There's something about Mount McKinley. I don't know what it's called currently, but
Hmm.
McKinley, and this is where you can even tell the thinking of Trump. He said he was a great businessman. So America has got a president who is a businessman, essentially. He admires businessmen. So he's very transactional. Even his engagement and thinking is about loss of money, the money going into spaces which are not benefiting Americans. He doesn't want that. He wants the money to be used to benefit the Americans. When you are talking about government efficiency, it had something to do with bringing down the inflation rate, if I'm not wrong. Um, you're trying to manage the inflation rate. You're setting up I think, a cabinet group or something like that who is supposed to bring down the inflation rate, and he explained why the inflation was so high and why things are so expensive, and said that has to come down. The last thing that, okay, there was the issue of Panama Canal, and then he said there were three things that he said that he wants to be restored. Uh, he said three things: we will not forget our country, they will not forget their constitution or their God. So some of the things that were taken away during previous presidencies, where like the word God was being removed from schools, and not you get in trouble. I remember there was a story during the time of COVID when children started going back to school. There was one child who had a mass written, um, something about Jesus Christ on his, you know, and he was told to remove the mask. And yet the rules were that the children must be masked. So they preferred that the child goes without a mask than wear the mask which acknowledges God. So for him, he's reversing all that. He says they will not forget their country, which of course means that he'll be looking internally, he'll be focusing on making America great, he'll be focusing on constitutionalism. That's perhaps why he's turning back what is the censorship on freedom of speech, and then God, because in God we trust is written on the money, the American money, and stuff like that. And if I'm not wrong, I think there was even uh, either a court case or a campaign in the US to remove the words "in God we trust" from the American money. I'm not sure how that case went, but yeah, so those are some of the things I picked up from his speech. Definitely a lot of superlatives, a lot of you get the sense that he's really focused on restoring the glory of the US. He sees the threat of China, and perhaps that's why he's all about, we didn't give the Panama Canal to China and they have it, so we're going to take it back. So he definitely sees the Chinese as people, a nation that has benefited a lot in the past. And, he wants to reverse that. Over to you, Maureen. You're muted. You're muted.
In summary, thank you for that. In summary, I think Donald Trump has a lot of work to do. It looks to me like, like I was saying before, like he's trying to, what do we say? He's trying to correct the wrongs of the previous administration. And he believes that he will restore the glory of America, the old America back. And the question is, do the young people even know what the old America was? I just hope they do, because things are moving so fast in this digital age that just 1 month, 2 months, so many things change. Depends on what people actually value. And now this is going to be the trick. How does he actually bridge that divide between the youth and the elderly people? And like, that these generational, there's a lot of generational divides. Like what would be considered to be like forward looking to me might not be looked at as forward looking to a child who's 18 or somebody who's 18 years old, really, because he seems to be so focused on military and protections and barriers, whereas the young people seem to want to have a more open, inclusive, free world where people can travel, where borders are looser, where there's less military intervention, where there's freedom of movement, and where people's sovereignty, the national sovereignty, is respected, so that the idea of colonizing countries doesn't appeal to young people and to many people in the world. And the same thing with people's sexual orientation. People want freedom to be able, the right to choose their sexual orientation or their gender. And he seems to be closing all these gaps. And my question is, how well will he really be received by the young people? And what will it do? I wonder to myself, how he's going to bridge the divide. I must say, it's a very difficult position that he's in. You have to appreciate the challenge that he's going to be facing. Yeah. So let me just play 1 or 2 videos for you guys here. Thank you so
Yeah.
much, guys. I want to remind you that you can come to the comment section, and in there's a link and it says streamyard.com. You can go in there and you can actually provide us with your views. If you're watching from Facebook or YouTube, you can actually come in and give us your views about our topic, which is, what can we learn? What have you learned yourself from the Donald Trump re-election? If you didn't watch the inauguration, that's okay. But the fact that Donald Trump won this election again and what he stands for, what do you think about it? Do you have any views about where America is going from here? Do you think America can recover? Do you think America can really develop with fossil fuels? Do you think that the whole climate change and green energy discussion should be shoved? Do you think that this is relevant still to today, or do you think that they're making a big mistake? Do you think Elon Musk, that was that billionaires club show that we had today at the inauguration? What do you think about that? It's quite interesting there, Also very
Yeah.
very male dominated as well. Big boys club.
Yeah.
Hmm?
Just to cap what you're saying, he dubbed his whole policy as being a revolution of common sense. So when you're talking about return to, that's what he
Really?
said. A
I missed that.
revolution of common sense. That's what he called it.
That is a strong
And
words. Mhm. So
yeah.
basically, what
Well,
he's saying is that the previous guys had zero common sense. They were running the country with no common sense.
yes,
That is
yes.
crazy.
He used quite strong language to talk about the crisis they
Yeah,
brought about in his view. And he said
yeah.
that they were not able, they have not been able to manage the Los Angeles fires or any
Uh-huh.
catastrophes Americans are suffering. The public health system has failed, notwithstanding
True
resources
though.
being injected. The
Mhm.
education system itself has failed, and it has what he called fueled a sense of a culture of national hatred. I'm not sure exactly what he meant by that, but I don't know whether it
Hmm.
is
Maybe it's the issue of the
critical
borders being
race
so
theory.
loose. Yeah.
Sorry, critical
Maybe
race
it's the issue of
theory or what?
the borders being so loose that immigration, the immigrants are getting better treatment compared to Americans. They get access, they get money, they get access to services, they get help, financial support for home for many Americans are actually becoming homeless. They're not able to pay their mortgages. They don't have proper jobs. The pay cannot go up because of cheap labor. Their security is at risk
Yeah,
because of this illegal immigration. Yeah. And that's why he calls them criminals, because actually they are criminals, because they're coming across the border without papers, and that's criminal in any country, really. They would be considered.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so
But
can I share a few
mhm.
things now?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so let's just see what this comedian has to say. His name is Trevor Noah. I think many of you guys know him. Let's listen. He's comparing Trump to African dictators before and after the 2016 election. That was when Donald Trump was first elected. But just listen to this. I thought.
Trevor Noah.
I just thought, we can inject a little bit of humor in here, It's a bit serious. That was Donald Trump in 2016, 2017. I don't know whether he's changed now, But they're all the same, you guys. They just like to brag. These guys are just not in the interest of braggadocious, but he's actually bragging. I'm smart, I'm rich. And they all say the same thing. Yeah. They all say the same thing. Ours says that he doesn't have to be liked. Yeah, he's not looking for votes for what, for popularity votes here. Yeah. So that was quite interesting. Yeah. So basically, let's talk about Trump's legacy back in the day. That was like this was published in 2020, and it talks about Trump's legacy in Africa and what to expect. That was with Biden. But let's just talk about it from the perspective of Africa. Historically, this article says that US foreign policy approach to Africa could be classified as benign neglect. It was characterized by general lack of interest in the continent in the pre-World War II era. After World War II, US policy involved engaging or disengaging with individual countries, mostly defined in terms of counteracting the Soviet Union's attempt to gain influence in the region. So basically, it was all about the interaction with Africa always had something to do with, Russia, basically. So a serious and sustained U.S. Africa engagement began under the Clinton administration. That's what they say. And they say that Trump's election signaled a radical break from consensus. His approach represented in part a return to the pre-Clinton era, notwithstanding the administration rhetoric. Okay, so basically, let me see here. Maybe I missed something over here. It was very important. Basically, he promised. Here he is. Donald Trump was propelled to the U.S. presidency by promising to rewrite globalization rules. This included restricting trade when it directly hurt the U.S., clamping down on immigration, reducing commitments to the global order. His administration's American First foreign policy also meant disengaging from its obligations to Africa, which he infamously referred to as SH shithole countries. Actually, that's what he said. Yeah. So he called us shithole countries. Basically, they consider that to be what is like a benign neglect, kind of like neglecting Africa. But from an African perspective, with us being on the continent, what we can say is that after getting over the insult of being called shithole countries, we also noticed a change, that Africans actually moved away from where? From America, and moved more closer to China and got more support from China. They started looking towards China and towards each other for support, other countries. So I think it was good for African growth, because what it did, it diversified our friends. It diversified our portfolio for getting support, and also for trade partners. So I think in the end, it didn't really work well for America. It worked well for China. It even also worked well for Russia and other countries. So I think this is one of the reasons why Africa is happy when Donald Trump is in power, because he neglects us. We don't like the idea of having that eye on Africa all the time, Yeah, so that was, basically one of the things that I see there. And then again, like, so for example, let me give an example here. Yeah, watch this video. Let's see this one here. Here is a guy who is describing some of the developments in countries such as Nigeria. Okay, Nigeria started to produce clothes that are even better than China and Turkey. Yeah, so I'll just play a little bit of this video so that you can
how
see.
Nigeria is fine, how Nigeria is beautiful, made through all those things. But I don't see one way past me. You understand? This one is not road. This one is not city. This one is nothing like that. This one is bigger than all of that. Now, let me ask you a question. Where do you think this clothes come from? Look at the clothes. Well, look at. You can. Let me bring it closer so you see. Where do you think this clothes come from? Being made from zero, not the local sewing or whatever they do. I mean, make, fabricate, produce. Where do you think they produce this clothes from? How much do you pay in China to bring these clothes to Nigeria? How much do you pay in Turkey? But I'm about to shock you. You can see. You can see for yourself. See. Look at. See clothes. Every kind of clothes. Male, female, every kind of clothes. Where do you think they make this one? You think it's China, right? You think they made it in Turkey. You think they make it in Europe. You think they make it in America. You see? Where do you think they make all these things? Guy, myself, I shock. Because somebody just said, Jim, come, let me show you. You are talking about road. You need to see what Nigerians are doing. You need to see what Nigerians are capable of. And I asked the guy, what are Nigerians doing? He said, come, let me go and show you one place. Now, I know that many of you will not believe it. So I want to show you the place where they produce this cloth from scratch in Nigeria. Yet many Africans are struggling and suffering to go and import it from China, to go and import it from Europe, to go and import it from America. Meanwhile, there's somebody here that has everything that it takes to produce this. The factory is set up. Everything is set up. You won't believe what I'm about to show you guys. Come, let's do this. So I'm taking you guys to meet the brain behind this factory, the man that started it all, the man with a vision, the man who has plans not just to make money, but to impact the lives of Africans in general. Let's go meet the great giant. It's a pleasure to meet you, sir, Mr. Ebi Tokunbo.
Yeah, thank you very much.
We have been showing people the fantastic work you're doing. A lot of them might not believe until we show them. A lot of people are unaware. A lot of people don't know. So we really want to hear from you. How did all this start? What inspired you?
Inspiration. Well, it has always been part of me to be productive, to manufacture for my country. You know, since I was growing up, I'd always wanted to do this. Not exactly, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew that I was going to become a manufacturer, become a producer of some form of goods or
So
products.
basically, you just have the vision and the passion to be able to produce something
It
for
has
your
always
country
been
and for
part
your
of me.
people.
It has been a passion.
Right. Thank you so
From
much, sir.
time immemorial.
So how did the inspiration of a factory came from to produce cloth? Did you travel and so on and notice that, or why did you choose the clothing industry?
Yeah, thank you. I never knew I was going to go into textile or garment manufacturing. Like I said, it was a passion to produce, to grow my economy. Sometime 2017, I went to Turkey to buy doors for to come and sell in Nigeria.
So you were also buying to come and sell.
Yes, I wanted to go to buy and to come and sell.
Yes, sir.
You know, doors.
Yeah.
You know, and getting to Turkey, I met this Turkish guy, and they told me, said, my friend, you are from Nigeria. I said, yeah. He said, we've been bringing clothes to Nigeria to sell, most especially shirts, you know, to sell. So, and he has been looking for a Nigerian he can partner with, you know, to see how we can bring a factory from Turkey to Nigeria and start producing shirts in Nigeria instead of importing or exporting to Nigeria. And immediately, for the fact that it has always been my passion, I just bought into the idea, and that was how it all started.
Wow, that's amazing. That's why I always tell people where.
Yeah. So let me stop over there. So that is one example of what an African country did in 2017. People, because that was the time that Donald Trump came to power, around that period, and we were being called SH countries in Africa, and Africans decided to get into manufacturing. They decided, many people actually started doing things. yeah, producing stuff in our countries. A lot of new developments happened actually. Nigeria, Kenya, there's so many countries, you know, where things were happening. People are not just sitting down on their laurels. And then also, let me just see. Apologies, I'm going to have to find that yeah. But then in Kenya, what are we doing here? We are busy here. What are we doing instead? We are busy deploying highly trained all female SWAT teams to Haiti to intensify operations. Okay, some of us have kind of lost the ball. Yeah, some of us have kind of lost the ball, I must say. Yeah, because this is really not a very good use of our resources, in my view. In Kenya, these are young people who could be doing stuff, and in the past we did, but right now this is what Kenya is doing. Yeah. And instead of focusing on manufacturing and trade, Africa is trying to go to help Western countries with, you know, getting involved in their wars and in their, you know, conflict situations, which in my view is not the best way to use our female resources. Our human resources. The other thing is that we are also sending our human resources to the Middle East to go and work as enslaved type of conditions, as house helps, as laborers, people who are educated, people who actually are university graduates. Instead of giving them opportunities to learn, to go and get scholarships, to go to China, to go and learn a skill, a trade, whatever, instead of that, we take our youth and we actually put them on planes and send them to go and be gardeners and cotton pickers and food pickers in Israel, in Ireland, in England, many countries. Whereas we should actually be developing our industry, our agricultural industry, just like Nigeria is doing. Yeah. So anyway, Susan, you can go ahead and say whatever you want to say.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true. I mean, in fact, I was today in the Daily Nation. Somebody called Daniel Ogeta wrote an article, navigating Trump season 2, African experts' predictions. So basically, he started off by saying, well, it is very rare for a president to come back the way Trump has done it. And I think there's only been one other occasion like that in the history of the US. And he said, he referred to the various, some African countries and how his return is likely to affect them. And this was based on experts' thinking. So somebody called Mikhail Nyamweya says that he's a foreign policy expert, says it's a balancing act for African countries, which, for instance, Kenya may end up turning to India for technology partnerships, or Saudi Arabia for increased investment in agriculture. He also says, yeah, so he says this is a moment also under this, this moment also underscores a pivotal truth. Mr. Nyamweya says that African states must recalibrate their dependency on the West. Africa must start looking inward. And then then that's what those are his words. So his words are: African states must recalibrate their dependency on the West.
Yes.
Africa must start looking inward. So
yes.
To look inward would be to rediscover our strengths as nations, and to weave dreams of autonomy and align with the emerging titans of trade. And so he just gives some example of some of the countries. So for instance, Rwanda would be waiting to see if they would still be restricted on the list of trade restrictions for refusing second-hand clothes. Uganda will hope for better tidings because the Biden administration ran into Museveni, who completely refused the LGBTQ plus rights issues. Southern Sudan will be holding to the hope that its transition plans can get better funding.
Mhm.
Kigali and Kinshasa, that is Rwanda and Congo, isn't it? One of them,
Yeah, Congo,
DRC.
yeah. DRC.
Yeah, they want to see if the president has a better way of resolving the Eastern Congo conflict. And this might be a prudent concern or thinking, because Trump in his speech talked about ending wars ending wars. So we don't know whether the US will value it enough, whether it's part of their strategy to help the Kigali and to help Kigali and Kinshasa with regard to the Eastern Congo conflict.
Yeah.
Because there have been decades of militia violence and resource disputes. And then Tanzania will hope that Washington will fund what they're calling the Lobito Corridor, which is a trans-African trade route, which would open up significant opportunities. Somalia will hope
The only way they're being interested in that is if there's anything in it for the US. If there's nothing in it for the US,
definitely,
why would they be interested?
yes,
That's the issue.
definitely. He's a businessman. Let's not forget he's very
He is
transactional.
a
He's a
businessman,
businessman.
yes.
Yeah, and
And then
then
it's all about
Somalia.
priorities with their resources.
Yeah, he was very clear in his speech that he's looking inward. His aim is to make America great again. That is actually what he wants. And
Yeah.
Somalia, according to these experts, Somalia, for Somalia, a transition security mission will need US backing. So they're hoping that the US would give that. And
So
then,
all these countries have a plan for how they want or how they would like the US to engage with them. I think that's a good starting. It's a good starting point because it's coming from the countries themselves.
No, these are their thoughts. These are foreign policy analysts and who are thinking based on their observations of the trends in those areas that this is perhaps what they're hoping for from the Trump administration.
Oh,
yeah.
I see. Okay, so it's speculative.
Yeah, it's speculative, but they're looking at the things that are pressing, and they're hoping that the Trump 2 season will support some of these things. So. Somalia is also is the transition security mission. Ethiopia is hoping for support over a controversial maritime MOU with Somaliland, which has strained relationships across the Horn of Africa. Then for Kenya, US relations have held significance since independence in 1963. We'll be looking to see how. We know that the Trump presidency will reshape trade relations, security partnerships, and foreign aid policies. The other thing for Kenya, his initial term, that was the 2016 term, Kenya benefited from AGOA. And the AGOA is the African Growth and Opportunity Act, which was under operation, and which allows parties preferential access to the US market for some African countries. So Kenya was one of the countries that was benefiting from the AGOA. So the program generated thousands of jobs and strengthened the textile industry, with Kenyan-based firms exporting billions of shillings worth of goods annually. So the comment again here is that Africa always benefits more from Republican presidents than Democrats. But Trump's presidency, one of the downsides is the deportation of illegal immigrants, and I think this perhaps attaches to the remittances, because we get a lot of, I think the African nation get a lot of remittances from their people in the diaspora. So with them being deported, maybe that line of
that's only a problem for African governments that have got no sense of direction or vision for its young people. In the first place, African governments need to look inwards and see why is it that their people are running away and they're going to become illegals in foreign countries.
Yeah.
Because you see, if they're deported, the country has to pay a certain proportion of that deportation fee. That is where they lose the money. They have to pay for
Yeah.
part of the flight. So the governments
That's
of
true.
Africa will have to pay to return all these people who left their countries illegally back to their country. So
Yeah.
yes, it will be an issue. It will be a cost. It will be definitely a cost. Yeah. But the problem
Yeah.
is that they cannot blame America for that. They can't. They have to blame themselves. But allow me
Yeah.
to also share another video so that we don't read the entire article there. We're almost done. So let me just share this kindly. Okay. Here we are. This is an example of how Ibrahim Traore from Burkina Faso rejected clinics from the USA and is spending millions on healthcare equipment. Yeah. Okay, let's listen to this. Oh, sorry.
Ibrahim Traore went ahead to commission a number of equipment and vehicles he has purchased for the health sector. All the vehicles you see behind me, including these trucks, these are actually cooling containers, yes? So they are used for maintaining the potency of things such as vaccines and, let's say, control material and other medicines that are supposed to be maintained at a particular temperature. All those ones are cooling containers. He also purchased mobile clinics because he says he wants to take health care to the people. So irrespective of how remote they live, Ibrahim Traore says they are taking healthcare to the people. And he mentioned that they want to focus particularly on women and children. And so some of the services the mobile clinics will offer include mammography, ultrasound, even cancer detection and treatment as well. Look at all that. He invested millions in purchasing all these equipment, the vehicles, the trucks, about 3,000 cooling boxes, mobile clinics. My goodness, this has never happened in the history of Burkina Faso. And it is a clear message he's sending out there that, hey, if you leave us in peace, we can manage our own affairs.
Mm-hmm.
And rightly so. This is just impressive. And he commissioned these things few days after the Prime Minister had a meeting with the US ambassador. This implies that they had already purchased these things. This is a very proactive person. He knows the needs. He knows what his people need and he's providing them. Guys, Traore, I just don't know how to describe.
Yeah. So there is something very interesting there. Traore Burkina Faso has purchased a lot of clinics, mobile clinics, which he's going to be using to reach the unreachable, the people who are poor in his country, Burkina Faso. And before that, we also saw lots of pictures of trucks, agricultural machinery and equipment that he also bought. You know, and another thing that you'll be interested to find out is that he was actually invited for the inauguration. But do you think that he went? No. He basically avoided going there, you know, and it's let's just see here. Let's see if I can share it with you. Yeah, let's just see if I can see this. Yeah, I don't know which one I'll show really. Let me show this one.
Today's story has been shaking up the political world in a way you wouldn't expect. It involves a bold move from Burkina Faso's president, Captain Ibrahim Traore, and an unexpected snub to none other than the U.S. President-elect Donald Trump.
I think maybe the other one would cover it a bit better. Hold on.
Today's story has been shaking up the political world in a way you wouldn't expect. It involves a bold move from Burkina Faso's president, Captain Ibrahim Traore, and an unexpected snub to none other than the U.S. President-elect Donald Trump. You heard that right. The heat is on, and here's why Captain Ibrahim Traore just rejected an invitation to attend Trump's inauguration this coming Monday, January 20th, 2025. Now, you might be wondering, why would Captain Ibrahim Traore, the 36-year-old leader who took power in Burkina Faso in 2022, refuse such a high-profile invitation from one of the world's most controversial figures? Well, let's break it down. First off, Traoré's leadership has been anything but ordinary. He came into power following a military coup, promising reforms and a return to stability for his war-torn country, which has been struggling with insurgent attacks in the Sahel region. So, it's no surprise that his international diplomacy is more focused on his country's security and economic needs than symbolic gestures.
Mhm.
Now, let's talk about the big news. Captain Traoré turned down an invitation from Trump to attend his inauguration as the 47th President of the United States, scheduled for January 20th, 2025. And this wasn't just any diplomatic invitation. It was a personal invitation from Trump, extended in the spirit of reinforcing ties between the U.S. and African nations. But Traoré's rejection is making headlines. Why? Well, here's the kicker. He cites more pressing matters at home, specifically focusing on combating insurgency and securing Burkina Faso's borders. He's making it clear that his priorities lie at home. Now, some of you might be wondering, why is this such a big deal? Sure, international diplomacy is complex, but this is far from just another rejection of a state invitation. Captain Traoré's move shows that he's willing to stand his ground and prioritize his nation's sovereignty over international photo ops.
Yep, that's it. That's it with Traoré. He said, shove it. Not interested. He has to secure his country. Remember when he attended the inauguration of the Ghanaian president? He actually had a pistol in his pocket. I don't know if this pistol, whatever you call it. He had ammunition on him, and he was criticized for it. But I remember there's a time that Traoré said that he is a soldier first. He's not a politician, and he has said it before. I'm not a politician. I am a soldier. He's there to defend his country, and the way he knows how to defend it is with equipment. Yeah. So if he was to go to the US, by the way, there's a big risk of him going to the US, because I do remember Donald Trump actually said something pretty negative about Burkina Faso and about him specifically. So why would he go? Why would he suddenly now all of a sudden go? And meanwhile, the same invitation was not extended to our wonderful president here in Kenya, Mr. Daniel, oh my God, Mr. Ruto. He was not invited, and neither was the President Kagame of Rwanda. He was not invited. Neither was Ramaphosa of South Africa. Nope, not invited. So very many presidents in Africa were not invited to that inauguration. But for some reason, they want to invite Traoré. Even I wouldn't go if I was Traoré. No way. It's too risky. You don't really know what they might do. They might put something in your shoe. You never know what will happen. They might put something in the AC. You don't know. You have to be very careful as a leader and intelligent and follow intelligence, because, it's very risky. This world is very dangerous and very risky. And Africa is the home to a lot of resources that are required and needed for development of other nations, although they would like to stop us from developing our own countries. But I really hope that in this particular case, Trump may actually change his mind and see African young people as a resource, especially because he has Elon Musk next to him. I'm hoping that Elon Musk will educate him a little bit, because he has his roots in South Africa and also in England, by the way. He's also English. His grandmother was from Liverpool, and that's why he's also interfering in British politics, English politics, and they're pretty upset. I hope you guys have been watching Elon Musk getting thrashed by the British. They're so angry. They believe that, the British politicians, they're like, who are you, American, to be interfering with our politics? And yet, they themselves have no problem interfering with American politics, but they don't like it when it happens to them. So it's the same thing. Now, we're just hoping that the people who have surrounded Trump will educate him, and that he'll keep an open ear, to hearing more. To understanding the politics that's going on in the world. Because, Trump also said something that was very degrading about the Congo. Susan, did you read that? What Trump said about the Congo, that Congo is releasing prisoners, and those prisoners, they're releasing prisoners. And I think I played that they're releasing prisoners and they're criminals, and they're being released into America. And if they come into America, they'll make the criminals in America look like a joke. I don't see how prisoners who have been released in the Congo would make American criminals look like a joke. I don't think so. No, that's not really the truth. But in case that is happening, they need to ask themselves what they themselves are doing in the Congo. What is America doing to protect the resources of the Congo for the Congolese? Yeah, from exploitation. So
I think the other
I
thing
don't see
that
anybody in the comment section. Hey, where is everybody? Come in the comment section. I'm waiting to hear from you. Some people were complaining that they could not actually get onto the comments until the video was actually, done, until it was actually published. So a lot of people say that they're not seeing our comments. They're not seeing my comments. But it's okay, guys. Whenever you do see them, please just come in. I'm sure there's very many videos that are being shown today. There are very many videos that are being shown today, and maybe there's not much space, but please feel free to come into the StreamYard and make your comments. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say that Trump's policies, bilateral agreements, he doesn't go for the multilateral ones. So, I mean, that's the other thing that the African nations would have to look forward to, that resourcing of funding will likely be, if they get it, is likely through a bilateral agreement. So it's like
what you mean by that,
direct.
for in layman terms, is that Trump goes for agreements country to country, not through the IMF and the World Bank, putting money in the IMF and the World Bank, not through those kinds of loans. It have to be with individual countries, bilateral, country to country. Yeah, Susan, I understand. Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually one of the things
Good
that
point.
he'd like
Good
to
point
do.
there.
But it's only if it aligns with his strategy. And, you can already see that he has pinpointed or identified certain areas where the U.S. interest is there. Greenland, the Panama Canal, the Gulf of Mexico, because of the strategic and the economic, the power. Because in his speech, he talked about America being powerful. The power issues, the political, the strategy, the strategic positioning of those things, and he's even going back historically. He's talking about when he was talking about the Panama Canal, he was talking about historically that money was raised by McKinley, and McKinley was a great businessman, and he's the one who did it, and then it was sort of given to Panama to manage, and now the Chinese are managing it, and that really get him on Trump's goat. He says they're going to take it back because they never gave it to China. So some of these things that he said, when we look at his overall speech, the what do you call it? Whether they'll work, his policies, whether he'll be able to pull them through. It's only it's a wait and see sort
There's
of
so many
situation.
of them. It's good that they had that Department of Efficiency. There's so many new policies.
So
I hope they're going to be able to keep a hold of them. Maybe we should apply for jobs in America to keep them accountable. I think we should. I think it's time. We're researchers and analysts and also evaluators and mediators and lawyers. So we're here. Maybe it's time for us to ask for jobs. Maybe there'll be some jobs available in the US. That would be really good.
Yeah, because like you said earlier, implementing some of those ideas may not be as simple as it sounds, because there's going to be a lot of barriers and reversal on issues like, for instance, the transgender issue. If somebody's already, has, how they're going to deal with the people post who have already, ones who have already taken the drugs and everything, and they've done top or bottom surgery and stuff like that. How are they going to address those? And
actually, I read somewhere that people who are already addicted to opioids and drugs, there's a plan to actually create a tent city, which would be in national parks, so that people are not homeless. Take the homeless off the streets and create tent cities in parks where they will have access to treatment so that they can, get off those drugs. There's a plan. There is a plan. Although, in America, everything is so complicated because people tend to like their freedom. They don't want to actually be institutionalized or be forced to move into some sort of organized living arrangement. They want their freedom to pitch tent wherever they want. But they said they're going to remove the homeless from the streets in America. And it's a big shame because they were talking about the homeless, the number of homeless, the percentage of people who are homeless in America compared to Japan and China. Japan and China, we're looking at the homeless situation in America being almost 25%. I mean, it's huge. It's a big percent. I don't know whether that's correct or not, but anyway, it's a very much bigger proportion compared to Japan and China. So I think that America, this is a real sore thumb. It's a sore eyesore for the world. The same thing with the UK, by the way. The UK has a very large homeless population. And in this era, it's very embarrassing for them. It should be embarrassing. Nobody should be homeless, especially in these developed countries. They call yourself developed, and your people are sleeping rough, you call it. Or they're sleeping in hotels, or they're sleeping in their cars or under bridges with their children as well as their pets. This cannot be correct. It cannot be normal. It cannot be normalized, really, Yeah. So, I mean, let me share also something else with you here, I think. Let's see here.
Donald Trump is set to reprise his role as U.S. president on January 20th, marking his second inauguration, this time as the 47th president. However, the lack of African leaders on the guest list has left many scratching their heads or throwing their hands in the air like West Coast rappers. Whether it is Burkina Faso's Ibrahim Traore, Rwanda's Paul Kagame, Uganda's Yoweri Museveni, South Africa's Cyril Ramaphosa, or Kenya's William Ruto, none have received the coveted golden ticket. Even Ruto, who once flaunted his congratulatory call with Trump on social media, finds himself off the roster, despite Trump claiming to have invited numerous global leaders he has interacted with, both over the phone and in person. Instead, Trump's guest list reads like a billionaires club reunion. Elon Musk, the tech tycoon turned Trump's superfan, will take a prime seat alongside Jeff Bezos, Tim Cook, and Mark Zuckerberg.
Make Argentina great again.
It is a veritable Silicon Valley summit with the unspoken dress code of net worth in billions, please. Political camaraderie also makes a showing, with Italy's Giorgia Meloni, Argentina's Javier Milei, El Salvador's Nayib Bukele, Hungary's Viktor Orban, and UK's Nigel Farage all set to attend. Now, these leaders share a populist kinship with Trump, mirroring his fiery rhetoric and nationalist policies. Notably absent, though invited, are Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky, Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu, and China's Xi Jinping. But let's talk about the elephant not in the room, African leaders. Why the snub? Particularly for someone like President Ruto, who was America's golden boy under Biden, granted a state visit, lauded with major non-NATO ally status, and practically anointed the darling of US-Africa relations.
Yeah, the sad truth, how you're dumped, like hot cake. You dumped like a hot cake. The only thing that he got wrong there was Ibrahim Traore. Ibrahim Traore actually received a personal invitation, but he just declined it, with some excuse. I don't know about the rest. I mean, if that one was not accurate, some of them may not have been accurate too, so we can't be 100% sure. But it appears that based on the way that these people like to travel up and down, most likely they would have wanted to be there. And I'm quite surprised that Xi Jinping from China was also not invited. This is going to be quite an interesting one.
No, he was invited. But he
Yeah.
didn't go. But he didn't
Okay.
go.
This is the
And
thing.
maybe he knew
Mhm.
he knew what Trump was going to say about China. And then he decided not to go.
Yeah, you heard what he said about China. That was not nice. Yeah. But I think, that let's just see what happens going forward. But what did we learn from Donald Trump's reelection? That one does not have to spend so much money on an inauguration ceremony like what we do in Kenya. We have stadiums filled with people, convoys of vehicles coming in. Expensive. It's so, so expensive. The richest country in the world had a very, reasonable looking, affordable inauguration ceremony. Because why? They are aware that they're using taxpayers' money. They're concerned that they're using taxpayers' money. But here, what do? We flaunt, yeah, and we become too much. Yeah, we spend excessively on inauguration ceremonies. This was just a room, literally like a theater hall. It was really, something else to learn. But another thing that we learned is that only the big boys club was invited, really. And that was kind of sad. And let's just see what happens going forward. So, guys, thank you so much for your time. I mean, we're going to wrap this up now. It's already 12 o'clock midnight in Kenya. And I want to really thank Susan for being here. We've been spending some long nights. We'll be seeing you again on Wednesday. I'll allow Susan to have the final word. But also just to tell you guys that, yeah, there's a shift in power in America. Think about what you have learned from the Donald Trump's reelection, not just about Donald Trump himself, but also about where the world is going and how we are moving ahead. We know that there are many people who are very sad because they didn't choose Trump, but hey, this is how it is, It's a shift in power. Yep.
Definitely, the question is, what have we learned from Trump's? That's the last word. What have we learned from Trump's re-election, and even from the speech he gave? What did we learn, and how is it going to impact you as an individual? How will it impact your nation of origin, or even if you're America, how will it impact you as an American?
Yeah, so let's hope for positive impacts, and let's hope for, like what he said, the golden age where the Martin Luther King dream, I have a dream, will actually be respected, where there'll be more camaraderie between people of different races in America, where there'll be less violence and less crime. Because I know the last presidential term that he had, that was where there was the highest number of uh, racial crimes in the country. And that was when we also had the pandemic, the COVID pandemic. So it was a very difficult pregnancy, very difficult presidency. And it wasn't positive for people of color. So let's just hope that that's going to be a change and a big shift. However, by excluding them this particular time around, even the Black Caucus, I didn't even see the Black Caucus there. It's quite disappointing not to see Black Americans there. Yeah, and we needed to see their faces. Maybe they were outside somewhere, but they need to be in the inner circle. So this idea of the exclusiveness of the Trump administration, they need to watch that, because the whole world is going to shun that. That's going to be a potential point of weakness, which people might decide to exploit. Yeah. So on that note, guys, have a good evening. Thank you so much for your time, Susan. Thank you for your time. Have a good evening. And for the rest of you, have a good day or evening. See you on Wednesday with another topic. And thank you for being here. For those of you who are going to watch later, please remember to include your comments. Give us a thumbs up on our videos. We do appreciate it. Share our videos widely and invite people to watch. Thank you very much. Good night. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.